Oh, shoot. All right, we're going to just keep going with this.
Lighting for Profits, the #1 landscape lighting show in the world. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Lighting for Profits.
All light, all light, all light.
Powered by Emery Allen.
Get rid of your excuses.
Your #1 source for all things landscape lighting.
That's where the magic can happen. You can really scale a business.
We really had to show up for each other.
From lighting design, install, sales, and marketing.
You're a scaredy cat salesman, Kurt.
We discuss everything you need to know to start and grow a successful landscape lighting business.
What do you think a hippo has to do with your business, Ryan?
Usually it's some weird childhood thing. Some bully kicked your butt.
I think the key factor here is trust.
Here is your host, Ryan Lee.
All light, all light, all light. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the #1 landscape lighting show in the world. Yes, we're claiming it, and no one has fought us yet. So, yeah, we're still going strong. And I'm excited to be here, guys. I was just talking to our guest right before about how I usually mess up every show. And literally, I go to hit record, and it's like some type of update thing flashes up or whatever. And I'm like, yes, no, cancel. I don't know. I just hit a bunch of buttons, and it still worked. But, yeah, we're here. So I'm excited to be here, guys. I love doing this show. It's honestly something I look forward to every single week. And by the way, if you're looking to start or grow a landscape lighting business, you're definitely in the right place. And we are here to educate, to motivate, and help you dominate. That is our purpose. And just want to help you guys out. So love talking shop, love talking about landscape lighting, and of course, business. I'm addicted to it. It's a real problem. And I'm excited to have our guest on. We've got Neel. Oh, I forgot to ask Neel how to say his last name. Parekh. Is that right? I don't know. He's going to correct us, saying I did okay. But he is with MaidThis franchise. And I'm so excited to have him on, you guys. You know, they say to surround yourself with people like you're the average of the people that you hang around with. And if I could have 5 Neels in my life, I'd be doing pretty good. So this is one you're going to want to definitely sit back, relax, and take some notes because this guy is doing things completely different than most other. He's a visionary. He's a I don't even know if it's a word. I forgot to look it up. Revolutionary can someone be a revolutionary? I think he can because he's doing stuff that's like completely different. And I'm just excited to have him on. So make sure you stick around. We're going to have him on in just a minute. And before we do, of course, I want to thank Emery Allen. Guys, you know performance matters, right? And this is a true performance for a true statement for a lot of things, including the kind of lighting you use. So don't sell yourself short with your customer by using budget level products. Emery Allen is at the top of their game when it comes to performance. Take their VA rating, for example. It's the lowest in the industry. What does that even mean? Well, it means efficiency, which means you're going to be able to put more lights on a transformer and save more money in the long run, right? Emery Allen is a great company to work with. The owners, they're family owned. It's just great, right? So make the switch today. It's a great time to do it. You won't be disappointed. All you got to do, by the way, if you want the hookup, and most people want the hookup, just email tomg@emeryallen.com and get your discounted contractor pricing. Get it set up just by emailing tomg@emeryallen.com. By the way, don't go to their website. Some people go, oh, man, their product is a little bit more than I thought. Well, that's because you're not getting the hookup. Don't go to their website. Email tomg@emeryallen.com. Mention you heard about him here on Lighting for Profits, and he will hook you up with that discounted contractor pricing. Guys, by the way, did I forget? If you want a free strategy session, you can meet with me or Jeffrey, and this strategy session is amazing. You'll walk away with clarity on what to do next in your business. It's a completely free thing. Just go to landscapelightingsecrets.com. By the way, check out my new website there. We've got a cool new website, but you can get a free case study there and then schedule an appointment to meet with one of us. And we promise that you'll walk away with newfound clarity. If you want to find out about our coaching, we can go over that as well. But we definitely want to make sure that we're adding value. So if you're wondering, like, what is the next step? What do I do in my business? Go check that out, landscapelightingsecrets.com. So, guys, it's time. Without further ado, I want to get straight into our guest because he's got a lot of things to share. And he's opened up my eyes to a lot of different things. And I'm just grateful to have his friendship. So if you're ready, let's get the music going so we can get our guest coming. There he is.
There we go.
What is up? Thanks for being here, Neel.
Dude, I've never had walk-in music on a podcast. This is epic.
Hold on.
I feel like a pro wrestler.
If I would have been ready for that, I could have done this. We try to go the extra mile here. And if I would have just had that DJ air horn ready, that would have been epic.
I should have queued you up. Just put the air horn signal.
I know. I need to do that because you're not the first person to say that. We try to do things different around here. We want people to feel good and like, man, this is Neel coming to the main stage, coming up, walk-up music, about to hit one out of the park. Let's go.
Let's go. Excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a ton, man. I said kind of getting started, I really do look up to you. You've taught me a lot, and some of it's just your mindset, right? But before we kind of jump into it, would you mind just introduce yourself real quick? Like, who is Neel, and how do you say your last name?
Yeah, Neel Parekh is my name. Parekh.
I kind of got it right. Okay.
Although my 7th grade PE teacher always said parakeet no matter what. So if you say that, it's okay too. Parakeet.
I like Parekh.
Yeah, Parekh.
Say it again.
Parekh.
Yeah, Parekh. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. So I run a company called MaidThis franchise, which is a fully remote residential and Airbnb cleaning franchise in the US. I originally started my home location in 2013. I used to work in private equity, did it as a side hustle for a couple of years, and launched a cleaning company with the goal of traveling the world while running it, which is kind of counterintuitive because why would you start a local company to be able to do that? But I figured out how to do it and started franchising it in mid-2020. And now we're at about 23 total territories in the US.
That's freaking awesome. So do you still have your original location, your main
I do.
business?
Yep. Still have it. I have a general manager in place over there. I probably work on that location maybe 5 hours a week.
5 hours a week, traveling the world. You figured out how to have a local service business and not be local.
Yes, exactly. It's going the counterintuitive way.
I don't think I asked you, where is your location?
It's in Los Angeles. So my home base is Los Angeles. So I now have an apartment over here. Now I've stopped full-time nomading, and so posted over here part-time and kind of traveling part-time.
You stopped full-time nomading?
Yeah, I traveled for 7 years. Kind of in and out, but like a lot of just backpacking, traveling, things like that. And pandemic hit and decided to kind of come back and settle up. And I got an apartment, got furniture, got a lease, got the whole shebang.
And you got married.
And I got married. That would do it.
You have really transformed your life over the last few years. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, so how many houses have you personally cleaned?
Between 0 and 1, I'd probably say. I'm not a good cleaner. I would get a terrible review if I was to do it myself. So from day one, I never cleaned. It was always outsourced from day one.
This just blows my mind because I come from this background and mentality that's you do something in life. Doesn't matter what the thing is. In this case, it would be cleaning. Maybe you work for someone, or you have this idea because you like cleaning toilets or something that you're going to launch this business. And I feel like I don't know what the percentage, but a high percentage of businesses are started because they're already good at the thing, and then they launch it because they want to do their own thing. But you look at it from a completely different approach. It's like you didn't start a cleaning business because you like cleaning or you want to clean. You just wanted a business that you could operate remotely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's I started a lot of different things to try to have the end result. So the end result in my mind was working in the cubicle in the 9 to 5. I was in private equity. I desperately wanted to escape, and I tried all the traditional things to go remote. And that would be like e-commerce or drop shipping or marketing or whatever. And every single thing flopped, did not work at all.
Really?
And finally,
give me an idea. What were some of the things that you tried to sell online?
Dude, my first thing, back then, this was over a decade ago, microblogs were a thing where you'd make a website, try to rank it and get some money from Google AdSense and stuff like that. So I started
that too.
Yeah, right. Everyone kind of did. I tried a pet hair vacuum microblog and then tried to do drop shipping for it. I started looking into e-commerce, bringing things in from China and selling it online, all that kind of stuff. And it kind of worked, but kind of didn't. And then finally I was just frustrated, and I was on Reddit at work. Ryan, you ever go on Reddit?
No, I like people have told me about it and I've clicked a link and it's like, go to Reddit or just stay on Google. I'm like, just stay on Google. I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good place to like procrastinate and waste time when you have a full-time
Oh,
job. So that's what I was doing.
nice.
So I came across a post of a guy who started a cleaning company. I thought, look, let me just give this a shot. Everything else is not really working. And it started to work. And Ryan, you know this, in the local business space, the reason things work is that the competition just really doesn't know what they're doing, right? Like people don't know how to market. Most people don't even pick up their phones. If they pick up the phone, they're like, oh, I'll call you back in like 2 days. So the bar is very low. And once I kind of realized that, wow, the bar is really low, I just got to pick up the phone, then my mind started buzzing. And the truth is, Ryan, I just had different constraints. Like I physically couldn't go out and do the cleaning because I was at a job. So for me, it was just like, that wasn't an option. Therefore, I automatically went to, okay, what's the solution? Let me find somebody to do it. The first time I met them at a Starbucks just to vet them and hire them, and then sent them out to the job. And it was it's kind
How
of like,
did you train them? You just said,
I didn't. Yeah. I just found people who were experienced already. And I said, all right, let's give this a shot and go ahead. Dude, I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. I was like, they wanted to get paid. I'd be like, all right, come outside my corporate building. And I'd hand them cash in the car. And like everyone in my building could see me. So they all thought I was a drug dealer. All those rookie mistakes at the beginning. But kind of to your point, like I never did the cleaning because I couldn't. And because of that, a lot of within those constraints, you kind of figure out solutions. Same as when I wanted to go travel. Because I wanted to eventually leave my job and go travel, I couldn't have an office space, vehicles, wraps, equipment. So I just had to figure out how to make it remote. So I think those life constraints that I wanted or was forced to have caused the way the business was formed.
I think it's so crazy talking to you because in your mind, that's just like so natural. But maybe for everyone else, but I feel like I'm like the average person. And for the average person, they put the constraints on the wrong thing. It's like, well, I can't travel the world because I have this cleaning business. And you're like, no, like what? Why would you not travel the world? Like that is happening. And because that's happening, if this is going to be successful, what has to be true? And you go about it just completely different, which I completely admire. And it makes me rethink everything I'm doing. I'm like, why am I doing it? And you start questioning it and putting those intentional constraints, even if you don't really have them, it really forces you to like come up with solutions that are abnormal, that are better than most. So I don't know. Like, how do you, is that just natural for you or like, where does that come from?
You know, I think I was always like, look, back then I knew I wanted to quit my job and travel. Right. So for me, I had a goal in mind, which is lifestyle driven. And when I figured out like, okay, here's the goal. I know what I want to do. And let me just find a way to get this done. And like, I thought it was going to be temporary. I thought I'd leave my job, I'd travel, I'd have some money coming in from a side business. If it flopped, I'll go back to my normal job, right? I don't think I had this grand plan of like, it's going to scale to 7 figures. I'm going to franchise it. Like it was none of that. It was just, my problem is I'm young and I want to go travel. How do I solve that? Let me make money on the side. That was kind of it.
Cool.
And I think since I had that one win, that's kind of then trained my brain to think, okay, well, if it's possible based off these constraints, what else do I want out of my life? And why don't I put those pins down first? And then I'm going to map everything else out first. So I guess it was kind of like the first thing I did along that vein worked. So it kind of gave me the confidence of like, let me just keep on mapping out my ideal life first. Then I'm going to wrap my business around that as opposed to the other way. And look, I do think there's pros and cons of doing that, right? I do think if someone said, hey, Neel, what if you didn't travel and you just stayed in LA and you worked? Would your business be bigger? Absolutely. Like for sure. Like, you know, there was a lot of distractions and things and I didn't move as fast, but I think it kind of goes back to what are you actually in business for? And for me, I'm in business to support my family, my lifestyle. That's what I want. It's not to get the max amount of profits and revenue as I can. That's not the reason I'm doing this. So I think once I started to get success with putting those pin downs and catering the business around it, I kind of found, well, I could still grow and have all the things in life I want. And maybe it's not as fast as it would be as if I'm sacrificing everything, but it's still moving at the pace I feel comfortable with, and that's okay. And then do it long enough, and all of a sudden you just keep on growing, and it keeps working. So it's interesting. No one's actually asked me that question, but I think that's kind of how it originated.
I love it, dude. I love the way you break it down because even I find myself in I don't know if you go through like different phases, but like we all want money. Like as a
Mm.
business, like I remember being younger, like it was like if I could just make 100 grand, and then when you make 100 grand, you want 200. Like it kind of never
Yeah.
stops. But money is just a means to an end. Like you said, like it's really just about lifestyle. Like what are you going to do when you get that money? Well, you wanted to travel the world. You wanted that freedom to do what
Yeah.
you wanted, and it's like, why not make that work? If you stayed home and stayed in LA and made $50 million, cool, but you were working your ass off and you weren't enjoying that. And you've been able to do both. I mean, you don't have 50 million sitting in the bank yet, but like you've built an awesome business of your own, just that supported your lifestyle. But now you're franchising it out and helping others live your same lifestyle, which is freaking amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, I think it's something I've realized that it's not a linear path. And like, by the way, I still get my head around this. I'm trying to believe this internally as well. But I've realized it's not when I make a lot of money, then I will be able to enjoy life. That's the old school way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's like, let me wait till I'm 65 and retire with my pension. Like, okay, yeah, sure, you're gonna have arthritis, dude. Like, it doesn't work like that, right? The old generation's proven that. So I think a lot of times we're still stuck in the mentality of when I achieve this, then I could have this. I think the truth when it comes to entrepreneurship and business is you can do both at the same time. You don't need to wait for one to be complete before you get to the other. You could literally have a dope lifestyle and have a profitable business at the same time. And there's certain constraints, right? Like if you're trying to do that from day one, okay, maybe you got to put a little bit of sweat equity into it, but it's not like you have to wait till you exit or wait till you're fully systemized. Because the truth is, unfortunately, the goalpost always moves as well, right?
Mhm.
Like when I make $100,000, I'm going to feel financially secure. When you do that, guess what? You're going to want 200 grand. You're going to want 250. You're going to want 500, and it keeps on going. But yeah, that's kind of like the ethos of why I started MaidThis as well. I think a lot of people want to have the best of both worlds, and I think my ethos is you can have it if you pick the right business model, and if you approach it in the correct way, and if you have realistic expectations about what you want out of life as well as money. I think there's a lot of ways of achieving it, and that's what we set up and MaidThis for the franchisees.
That's amazing. I want to try to pick your brain a little bit because I think a lot of people struggle being there. Like even if they're there at their location, like any home service business, they struggle with, and then you're able to dominate, and you're not even there.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to I guess get your first location that you were doing for yourself there in LA? Like how long did that take to get off the ground and have enough money coming in to where you felt like, cool, this is a business that can operate without me there all the time?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, it kind of comes back to what is your freedom number? Now, a freedom number is kind of for me to find is what is the amount of money I could have coming in that's going to cover all of my base level bills.
Yeah.
And, my approach was a little bit different because I was never truly boots on the ground always. I was doing stuff where every weekend I'd go out to meet cleaners, to interview them, to onboard them, maybe check a house or two, things like that. But we got to around, assuming it's a side hustle, I think we got to around 30,000 per month in revenue. And dude, I didn't know what I was doing. Our gross margins were out of whack. I think I was probably pulling in 3,000 a month, so like 10% profit before paying myself even. So like just terrible business model in terms of how I was setting it up because I didn't know what I was doing. But that number was in my mind like, cool, that's enough to pay my bills if I quit my job. And that's when I decided to quit. And then I already knew the pin in my life was like, I want to go travel. Like I will figure out what happens, but I want to go travel. So I booked a one-way flight down to South America. And when I was there, I was like, okay, well, I can't interview people anymore. How do I solve this problem? And it's like, well, what if I just pay someone to interview someone? So I found someone, kind of give them some virtual training. They would start to meet people live.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't as easy as it when I was doing it, but it worked, kind of worked. It worked 80% of the amount I did it. And I kind of figured out like I could just keep on outsourcing. And if it's 80% as good as I could do it, that's okay. So the next hire after that was someone to help manage sales because phone calls were coming to me and I could still take a phone call from Colombia. However, sometimes the connection was bad. Sometimes I was out and about doing stuff. So then I found a remote team member in South Africa. And South Africans have really cool accents. It's kind of like British sounding accent. So I realized, oh, this guy's actually better than me at doing this. And he was part of a Jehovah's Witness community in South Africa. So really good at sales and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that kind of worked out. Let me just got all the calls to route over to that person for phone sales. And it just started compounding from there. Like every time I had a problem, which required me to be in person, I'd just say, I'm not going to be there in person. Either I just don't go after that market or I'll hire someone to do it.
Gosh, I freaking love it. I told you this the other day that if I would have met you 5 years ago, actually about 5 years ago, because that was when I was selling my business and like, okay, what am I going to do now? I would have not have started my coaching business. I would have just joined the program, which you didn't have the program then, but if you did have the program available, I would have just joined that and done the lifestyle business because it's freaking epic, man. It's crazy. Like, I love how you think. You just put these constraints. Like, if I want to be able to travel and be gone, what would have to be true? Well, I'd have to have somebody there. I'd have to delegate it. I have to, and like none of us do that. I'm telling you, like 99% of the entrepreneurs don't do that. We just do the work that we think we have to do. Like, well, if I'm not there, like who's going to do it? I got to be there. I got to do the interviews. So I can't be in South America. And it's like, you're like, no, I'm in South America. I can't do the interview. I just, so genius. I freaking love it.
I appreciate it. By the way, I'm definitely taking this video clip and putting on the MaidThis franchise website. Like Ryan Lee, 5 years ago, would have bought into MaidThis franchise.
Yes,
you should do the same.
Exactly. And I'm not saying, I mean, I'm so focused right now on what I'm doing. And by the way, I love what I'm doing. And so, I think life happens for a reason and stuff like that. And so, like, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have loved it as much as I thought, and the grass is always greener and all that stuff. So I love what I'm doing. But once if I get this business on cruise control, because I'm so focused on it, there's a lot of stuff that I still want to accomplish in it. Then it's like, why would I not just still sign up for his program and have like multiple franchises with Neel? Like, I don't know why I'm not doing that now. It only takes 5 hours a week.
Ryan, I'm curious, and I'm gonna flip it on you. You I talked about the life pins of what you would do, and then you build a business around those constraints. I'm curious what that would be for you.
Mine is, man, we don't homeschool our kids, and so our kids have this constraint of school. And we've talked, like, my son is like, heck yeah, he's ready. He's asking, like, can you homeschool me, Mom? Like, he hates school. The other girls, they have like, friends and it's like, we're like too late. Like, we've already committed to that. So I don't think, as much as I would love to travel, I don't think that's a realistic constraint, at least right now. But for me, my goal is to work 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I like working. I'm addicted to it, but I don't want to feel like, oh man, I've got a little bit of open time on Friday. Let me squeeze that person in. Like I definitely grind way more than I should. And that's for me is like the constraint that I want. Is like, no, I'm only available Monday through Thursday, 10 to 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the wealthiest people I've ever met, I think he's like a friend's uncle that actually met live, probably worth easily 50, 60 million. He's never worked past 3 p.m. since he got into business. Never. That's his constraint. He doesn't travel or do anything like that. And he probably gets up pretty early, but his constraints, my kids are off at 3. I don't want to work past 3. I'm not going to. And he's still able to build, a lot of wealth. Now, could he have moved faster if he worked later? Probably. But again, his constraint was like, I don't really care. I'm just going to stop at 3. And I thought that's really cool. Like, I'm not quite there yet. My calendar's still like booked up to the max, and I'm trying to get a better handle on this. But it's aspirational for me. I think it's a good constraint, ending by a certain time.
Well, I've questioned myself this after meeting you, and then I'm doing it now. Like, why don't I just do that now? Like, why don't I just say that's my schedule? Like, because it's so true. Like, someone told us that we have 7 days in a week. Like, someone came up with the calendar, and then someone told us that we work Monday through Friday and we get weekends off. Like, this is all just made up fantasy stuff. Like, we can make our own rules, and you've done that. You made your own schedule. You made your own constraints. And I'm like, why am I'm such a slow learner? It's like, I know what I can do. If you gave the average entrepreneur 8 days a week, they would work 8. Like, they're going to fill the time that's given to them. And I tell myself, well, I've got this much time. But if I told myself I only had 4 hours a day for 4 days a week, I think I could probably get everything done. Like, why am I not doing it?
Yeah, I wonder how much more productive we would be within those hours as well, right? We'd probably say, look, our best time is spent on content production and your podcast, maybe sales, maybe coaching, and everything else. It's got to go. It doesn't fit in there.
Yeah. It's crazy because I'm going through this phase right now where I canceled an event. I'm trying to turn a lot of the stuff off to get more focused in that. And I'm just like thinking out loud because you asked me that. I'm like, wonder if I should just put more constraints on it, because it really is the way. It's just hard to like accept. That's the
I
hardest
know. Yeah. Especially when the calendar's already exploded. It's
I
like
know.
reining it back in. It's tough.
But I do like it. I mean, the book I read, one of the books I read most recently is 10x is easier than 2x.
Mm.
And it doesn't speak in the same language that we're using, like with constraints and things like that. But it does basically say, like, if you want to like double what you're doing, like just change 20%. Like if you have 80-20, just change 20% and you'll do better. Like that's kind of obvious, you know?
Yeah.
But if you want to like 10x, you have to change 80% of what you're doing, and most of it's got to go. And if you really wanted to, like, it's the same type of constraint. Like if you wanted to do, if you, let's say you're doing $1 million this year and you want to do 10 million next year, what would have to be true? Well, certain things you couldn't do and certain things you'd have to do. You'd have to get this and this and this, and that's the way. But if you wanted to go from 1 million to like, 2 million, like there's a lot of different ways to get there. And so you end up wasting your time and energy on a lot of different things. Whereas the 10x route is like, there's really only like 1 or 2 ways to do that. You'd have to have this, you'd have to have this, you'd have to have a solid marketing plan, you'd have to have a big sell, stuff like that. So it reminds me of your philosophy and your ethos of like, I just put constraints on it. And like, if you only were available from 10 to 2, what would have to be true?
Yeah. I think that's a great way of saying it. What would have to be true if this constraint existed, and then just plan around that?
Damn it. I hate having to change, Neil. Why is this about me? This is supposed to be about you. Okay, so let's do this. Let's talk about what you've done now, because you proved it on your own. You traveled. How many countries have you been to?
Around 55.
55. That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen 55 cities. So you've been to 55 countries, which is freaking amazing. I love it. You really have made your own rules. Like you just said, screw it. There's no schedule. There's no week. There's no day. Like, but now you're teaching others to do it, and it's called MaidThis, right?
Yeah, MaidThis franchise.
Tell us a little bit about that program.
Yeah, so it's pretty much copy and pasting what I've done in Los Angeles into different cities, right? So it's kind of a franchise in the traditional realm, but what's unique about us is the way I created my business is low cost, low overhead, low equipment, able to run it remotely. And that's why a lot of people are buying in, because you don't need vehicles and wraps. You don't need a ton of CapEx and take on a lot of risk. You don't need to get like massive bank loans. It's kind of like run in a lean way where you use global talent to help service that local location and just dominate the local competition. So we figured out how to kind of crack the code in LA, been running that for like 10 years. So we focus on residential and Airbnb, and we're the only Airbnb cleaning franchise which exists, funny enough. So first and only, so just expanding. And a lot of people who want to get in are, some people are second-time entrepreneurs, but a lot of them are first-time entrepreneurs, people who want to get into the game, want to do it in a de-risked way, don't want to invest a crazy amount of money into it. And so we do allow people to keep their day job for a bit, just like I did, before going full-time as well. So it's pretty much, how do you start what I call a remote local business? A local business you could run remotely. That's the model. That's what we do.
Remote local business. It's just amazing. So how do you get, like, you set these people up, you have the blueprint. Let's talk about some of the questions that come up, I'm sure. Well, what are some of the questions that these franchisees are like asking you?
How do I get customers? How do I get cleaners? That's probably the most common. So yeah, let me answer that one. I think on customers, and Ryan, you know this, like every city varies, and the tactics vary depending on what's going on with Google algorithm and stuff any given year. Like 3 years ago for cleaning companies, Google LSA crushed it. You could just flip on Google LSA, get a bunch of leads, and that's it. Nowadays, it's different. Nowadays, I see community marketing working a lot better. So I'd say for marketing and how to get customers, it's kind of a combo of digital marketing and community marketing. Community marketing means like door hangers, flyer, offline marketing, kind of, that's what it is.
Okay.
And we kind of teach both. So we have a lot of like SOPs of how to run digital marketing, vendors who do it for you. We have all the playbooks for like one-click buy for all the marketing collateral you need for offline marketing as well. So it depends on the market, and it depends on what you actually like doing. But that's kind of the combo we use, both digital as well as offline marketing, to actually find customers in the area.
Very cool. So you get customers, you get a lead,
Mhm.
and then they're not answering the phone. So who's answering the phones?
So we help all our franchisees recruit a remote team member, someone from around the world. So my team, for example, in LA, we have, I think, 3 team members in Venezuela, 2 from Honduras, 1 from South Africa, and my accounting from India. So everyone's global.
It's like
So it
every
depends.
country you go to, you're like, I got to hire somebody.
I got a guy. So Ryan, let's pretend you signed up, and we have a franchise in Salt Lake City, by the way. So, somewhat close to you. But let's say you signed up and you're in Lehigh, I think, right?
Yep.
Cool. So you'd probably not want to pick up the phone calls yourself. You learn how to do it in the first month or 2. Then you finally say, like, let me just give this to somebody else to do. I got more important things to do. We'll help you hire someone globally. That person probably costs between $900 to like $1,400 full time for that person. And that person's going to be able to pick up the phone per month full time, which is a fantastic salary in most of these countries. That's like 2-3 times about the average salary in most of these countries. So
it's not costing you a lot in overhead, but you're also blessing someone's life by giving them a great
absolutely.
job.
And look, if you think about it this way, and I didn't even think about this, but like a place like Venezuela, their inflation is insane, through the roof, every day, every month. It's really, really hard to buy groceries over there. Now, when you go to these people and you pay them in US dollars, a very stable currency relatively, it's beautiful. Like you're helping them out a ton. They're helping you out. They're really bought in because they really want to make this work as well. And the truth is, a lot of things we're doing right now can be done virtually. You and I are talking on a computer. I could be anywhere. You and I are talking on the phone. I could be anywhere. Why does someone need to be in the US to do this kind of stuff unless you're doing a lot of in-person estimates? Now, for our job types, it's cleaning. Our average ticket's 200, 250, maybe going up to like 700. All of this could be done on phone calls. No one really needs you to come out in person anymore. So anything which can be done on the phone, there's almost no need to have someone in the US do it. It makes no sense. So let's say you had made this location Lehigh, you hire someone in South Africa, that person calls your number, your route's there. They pick up the call, do the phone script that we teach them, put the booking in the system, boom, that's set up for you. And then you on your end would be recruiting cleaners. And then on the online portal, you simply match the cleaners to the customers, and that's it.
Love it. And then do you guys help with the hiring of the cleaners?
So we have all of the automations and funnels for franchisees. The franchisee would still need to vet the cleaner because they don't know if they actually like them or not. But we have the job descriptions, all the Trello automations, funnels, sends out the documents, all that kind of stuff set up.
Nice. And this is the local part of the remote local business.
The local part is the labor. That's the boots on the ground. That's the part you can't take out of country yet.
Well, I loved it. We were, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, we were together in Texas, and you were asking me questions about my business, and you're like, so where's your sales guy? I can't remember how it came up. We were talking, and you go, oh, so he's from here. And I'm like, oh no, he's not from here. He's in Tennessee. And you're like, no, but he's from here, like the United States. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's in Tennessee, not Texas. Like your mentality is just like, why would you hire someone from America? Like, that doesn't even make sense. And I'm just like, gosh, that's such a good question. Like, I don't know. It's because I have a small mind and I don't think big. So
I think it's just the way it's been done, right? Like you do what you're exposed to. And I just happen to be exposed to that. Like, I didn't come up with global talent. I just happened to be exposed to that when I was starting my business. So yeah, that's what I gravitated towards.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody you don't know what you don't know. And then when you're given that opportunity, given that knowledge, that information, it's like, what are you going to do with it? Right. And that's the phase I'm in. I'm like, okay, I got to kind of change my philosophies here and my thought process. Cause some of these things, you just don't know what you don't know. So you help them get it started. And then what do they got to do as like the owner? How much time and effort is required to manage this thing?
Yeah. Well, Ryan, it's kind of like what you probably always hear if someone says, hey, how much time do I have to devote to this in the beginning to get it growing fast? And the answer is always going to be, well, the more time you put in at the beginning, the faster it's going to grow. And that's totally true over here as well. This is not a passive business. So I always just say you need a minimum of 20 hours a week to get it going. And look, over time, you could automate it and get it to a certain point where leads are coming in naturally, sales are happening without you. You just manage the managers. And at that point, you could work with 5 hours a week if you'd like, just like I've been doing for a while. But at the beginning, I'd probably say minimum of 20 hours a week. And most of that time is spent on kind of the chicken and egg problem. You have cleaners, you don't have customers. You have customers, you don't have cleaners. How do you grow? When you get customers, you're like, hey, this is not from a reliable source. Let me just try to find another marketing avenue, another marketing lever. So it's a lot of experimentation, which the owners are going to do better than anyone. But once you get to a kind of a stable point, then you could start to put control systems and automations into place where you don't actually have to be there.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, and I'm probably guilty of this too, but like most people have a higher expectation of like how easy it is to start a business. And of course, you know, if you get with your support and stuff like that, it's going to be 10 times easier, but it still takes time. It still takes effort. And like you start a brand, let's say you start a brand new landscape lighting business, cleaning business, doesn't matter. You don't have the luxury of repeat business yet. You don't have the luxury of momentum that you start to get in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And most people don't make it that far. And so they quit and give their hands up. It's like, man, if you can push through that pain and work those 20 to 40 hours, whatever, like it takes time. There's not really a get rich quick scheme out there. I mean, if it is, it's a scheme, you know? And man, I just see so many businesses struggle with that. I'm like, man, get to that point where, you know, you put in the time, you put in the effort. Years 4 and 5 are awesome, man, especially in landscape lighting where like maybe you did their front yard and then 2 years later they did their backyard. Okay, that's repeat. And what happens is these people get richer. The rich always get richer. And so they get a promotion at work, they start another business, they sell a business, and they go from a 5,000 square foot house to a 10,000 square foot house. And now instead of doing a $10,000 lighting project, it's a $40,000 lighting project that you had because you put in the time, you know. And a lot of people just don't, they're not willing to do that, unfortunately. You know, they just expect it to be a lot easier. So
and I wonder how much of a problem is it from like just social media expectations to get rich quick of like, I started my cleaning company and now I'll make 10,000 a month. And it's been 2 months, like unrealistic. And if that's the case, it's not sustainable, but you're totally right. And the way I always describe it, there's the grind phase where you're trying to figure out the chicken and egg problem. Do I have enough cleaners? Do I have enough customers? And in lighting, it's probably like different thresholds, but for us, it's like 0 to 10,000 per month grind phase. Right. And then there's another gap, what I call a no man's land phase. That's usually like 10,000 to maybe like 20, 25,000 per month in revenue. That's where you're like, hey, things are kind of stable, but I don't feel like I'm making that much money yet. Like what's going on? And I feel like I just worked for a year. Why am I not seeing the fruits of this yet? And that's the hardest phase. That's where most people stop. And that's because, you know, you have fixed costs and your revenue hasn't quite caught up to it yet. But once you get past that hurdle, that's probably when your Google reviews are doing well, when you have repeat business, when you have enough money to be able to pay yourself a little bit, you'll be able to hire better team members. Then it starts clicking, right? But like you said, man, that might take 18 months, that might take 2 years. And it really depends on how much time you put in at the beginning, which is how much yield you're going to have as fast or slower. So yeah, man, you said it well, just people don't want to wait. And that's the tough part.
I know it is tough. And, you know, it's like if I go do a video, most of the like online or whatever, I'm usually not going to be like share like this depressing video.
Yeah,
like, man, being an entrepreneur sucks, whatever. Like, because I don't like, what's that going to do? Is that going to help someone? You know, I don't like to complain. I like to give solutions and stuff like that. So hopefully people don't take it the wrong way that like life is easy and like, oh man, everything you do just works. It's like, it works, but there's like 90% of stuff you didn't see that didn't work. You talked about businesses that you started trying to make money remotely. And, you know, we all have these failures that happen that help guide us to actually what does work. So,
yeah, well said.
We have one of our coaches, Dan Plata. He talks about the purgatories of scaling is what he calls it. And I remember getting to that point where we were doing just a little over $1 million a year in revenue. And I was like, why am I making less money right now? Like, what's happening? Like, this was the goal. It was to get to that $1 million. And we were like 1.2. And it was like, well, that's because we just paid everyone to do all the stuff. And it was cool because I didn't have to do as much work, but also I didn't have as much money. And so then we noticed that gap, from about million to 1.5. That is all like profit when you get to the higher end of it. At the low end, you're not making that much money because you're so invested in the actual overhead and the machine. But that's why you got to figure out what those levels are. So it's true. You got to kind of, I don't know. And I haven't found for a lighting company that there's exact numbers because it depends on how many people they have on their team. And
Yeah.
if they've got a salesperson in South Africa or one in Tennessee, it depends on their overhead.
Yeah. I found that from my own business where 2019, we did really well. We got to 2 million in revenue, but our margins were awful. I wasn't making nearly as much, and there's way more headache than when we were at like 1.2, 1.3, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So we actually, then COVID hit, downsized a little bit, and now we're kind of hovering between that for my LA location alone, 1.2 to 1.5 just on any given year. So much easier. Like I almost don't, unless maybe I've learned a lot more, but to get to 2, you're investing a whole nother set of internal team members, a whole nother set of processes. Like there's just a lot that goes into it to get to the next level. So at some point, like for us, if you do that, you might as well go for 2.5 or 3 because you're not making that much money at 2 as you almost make an equal amount as you're making at like 1.5. So why are you investing in all those extra people? So yeah, it's very interesting how there's different staircases.
I agree. And I'm sure different industries are different revenue numbers. Cause like in the landscape lighting world, for us, what I found the happy place was it's like, if you just have one install team and one salesperson and one office person, it feels good at first. Cause again, you're not doing everything. But then if the office manager wants to take 2 weeks off, like who's answering the phones? It's like, well, I was, or the salesperson quits. Who's doing the sales? I was. The install team doesn't show up, like I was, right? So I found that if you went the next level up where you get redundancy and you have 2 salespeople, one, they kind of compete against each other. And they know that it's like, we had some people that like even in the office, they would get attitude of like, what are you gonna do? Fire me? And you're kind of like, probably not. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't.
But when there's 2 people like that, those attitudes go out, and everyone knows that they're replaceable, including yourself type thing. So there are those happy places in business where it can get pretty easy, and it doesn't have to be that hard. The hardest part is that phase you mentioned right after the honeymoon phase, like after you start making some money and it feels good, then it's like, it gets to that grind. And if people can get through that, there is that like happy place where you can decide to kind of stay a little while, or you can scale up to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. We have a franchisee, our first one, Denver. They started in mid 2020. The first, like COVID and everything, it was very slow rolling, and they kind of just stuck with it. Like didn't do crazy numbers year 1, not even crazy numbers year 2, but year 3, they have 100 Google reviews. SEO starts hitting, repeat customers start hitting, just hockey stick growth, scaled up massively. Now they're going to expand over to Austin because now they know, like, yeah, I understand it's like 1 or 2 years of not much, but then it comes. It's just an investment period. But that's the hardest part to know when you're in the thick of it and you need that outcome fast. Is how do you get that return as fast as possible? And for some people, like the Denver franchisees, they both work full time. This is not the main thing they're doing, but they're still growing well. And they understood that it would be slower because they're not investing as much time into place. I do think people could probably get to that payoff period faster if they just devoted a lot of time at the beginning to hustle and the right type of hustle. And that's one where like maybe your constraints, like you can't go to Colombia in your first 6 months, right? Because you're like, hey, look, I'm just going to put this over here and I'm going to focus on it for 6 months and then I'll go afterwards, right? I think a lot of people maybe stick to that for way too long. They're like, well, let me grind for 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then I'll enjoy it. And that's where it's like, okay, maybe you're not being efficient with your time. Maybe there's a higher value stuff you could be doing for your time to be able to condense those years of work, of hard work, into a smaller time frame.
Well said. Yeah, I like that. So when you guys are, you've got how many locations now?
We have 20 franchisees and a total of 23 territories, 23 locations.
Man, that's so cool. Congrats so far. I mean, I know you've got bigger plans, but most people don't make it as far as you've made it. So that's very awesome.
I appreciate it.
Who is kind of your ideal client avatar? Is it somebody that has they've never had experience as an entrepreneur, they have a corporate job, or would you prefer some experience? Like who's your ideal?
I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a mix, but oftentimes people who don't have too much business experience are kind of our ideal fit, right? Because we have a ton of training systems, protocols, ways of thinking. So it's kind of like someone's a blank canvas, just pushing them straight through it. I think that's incredible. And we oftentimes see those people grow fast. I think number one characteristic would be someone who has the time capacity at the beginning, right? And it's always tough, especially if you're working another job and you're like, hey, I have a handful of hours to devote to this. You might not hit that freedom number fast enough, where you get to like, Ryan, what you and I were talking about, where you're in no man's land phase for way too long. It's demotivating, things like that. So ideal candidate would be someone who maybe has some business experience, but doesn't necessarily need to have too much, who wants that time and location freedom and wants to build their schedule around schedule first, business second, and probably has the time capacity to invest in the business and is willing to do in-person sales if needed. Sometimes we see the fastest growth happening by someone picking up the phone and doing a cold call to a property manager, or going to an apartment complex in person and saying, hey, I just want to drop off this candy, right? Things like that. For some people like Ryan, I'm sure you're going to feel comfortable doing that. For some people, it's really scary to do. But those are things which kind of move the needle really fast. So as long as someone's willing to do kind of some in-person stuff and has the time capacity, it'll work for almost everyone.
All right. I got the time and I got the ability. Send me the link.
There we go.
No, I got to stay focused. What am I doing? Where's my therapist? Oh, dragon. What are we doing? Why did we mastermind 2 weeks ago? Let's talk about maybe some of the struggles. Like, is there something that you struggled with in the past that you feel like you conquered, or anything you're going through now where you're just like, man, this is the hard part of being an entrepreneur?
There's kind of, I guess, a couple things that come to mind. One of them is, Ryan, kind of what you're alluding to is like, it's hard, number one, not to get shiny object syndrome. Like I see someone with a business model, I'm like, that's a better business model. I want to go do that. Like that seems so much easier. Let me just do that. Like, wow, that's quick cash. Let me do that. And like Ryan, you can only see it externally, right? Like, for example, you're telling me about your podcasting. I'm like, dude, I should be focused on that. Or like, it's constantly there, right? And there's like the comparison game. And I don't think that's novel to entrepreneurship. That's just like human nature. But it's really tough not to play the comparison game in entrepreneurship, because people post stuff on social media all the time. You're going to get targeted with that. You're going to see it. You meet a lot of other entrepreneurs, and it's really tough not to fall into that trap. So I constantly battle with that. One thing I've done, which I don't think this is the best solution, but so far it's worked for me, is instead of me like mulling over a business idea I'm going to do, I just throw it on like a note, and I have a calendar reminder saying I'm allowed to check this once a quarter. At the end of the quarter, I can look through all the business opportunities I've looked at and decide, is this something I actually want to do? Most of the time I end up like being like, oh no, that was like, it was a good high when I learned about it, but like, I'm not actually doing this anymore. It kind of lets me cool down on it.
Like in the moment you would have said yes in a heartbeat. Now it's set for a quarter and you're like, I don't even care about that.
Yeah, exactly. There's still some things where like, I forget to put it there, and like I spend a day being like, hey, I'm going to start this newsletter for like this thing because I heard someone do it. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But I probably struggle with that the most, is shiny object syndrome. The second one would be just managing team members. For me, it's something I'm trying to get a lot better at in terms of like how to be a leader, how to be a CEO, how to hold one-on-one meetings, how to motivate team members. Something where I don't know if that's my forte exactly, but something I definitely want to get better at.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. Both of those are really good. The the shiny object, I didn't realize. I thought I had like conquered that, but I find myself having shiny object within my business. It's like there's so many good options I could do to like offer value to the marketplace, get money, get clients, and I was like, I got what do you call it? Blindsided? Yeah, I got blindsided with that. Blindsided? I don't know. I got sidetracked. Something, whatever the word is. And I was like, wait, I've been chasing shiny object within my own business model. I thought that meant like me starting a maid service business or whatever. It's like, no, it could happen within your business too. So that's a great point that you shared. And I like the idea. Just write it down on a list and let it cool off. If in 3 months it's still a hot thing, then maybe it's worth doing. But most of the time, it never is. Like by then,
Yeah.
the world's changed, and you're like, I can't believe I was thinking that was cool.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me when you say that, like, I wonder what things I'm doing in my business, which are shiny object related or not really moving the needle. And it makes me want to read that book, 10X is better than 2X, which I keep hearing about, but I feel like that would clarify if it's not something that you could 10X your business with. I'm guessing that's the premise of it. Don't do it then.
Just get rid of it.
Mm.
Yeah. No, you would love it. It's right up your alley. I'm not saying I've mastered it. Clearly I haven't, but it's helped change my trajectory. And I shared at our meeting as like my shiny object was like getting invited to go speak at events or even do my own events and stuff like that. And again, these are all like really good things. They're things that like doubled my business, and they would continue to double. Like most people would like kill for these things. Like they're really good things, but I know the potential. I know that it's not a 10X activity. And so now it's me going, okay, you're a slow learner, Ryan. You can do this. Just say no. Just say no.
Yeah.
If it's not a 10X activity, you don't need to do it. So easier said than done for sure.
How do you consider you getting on people's podcasts instead? Because that's also kind of like a speaking gig, right? You're still giving your time to be on someone's podcast.
To me, that is a 10X activity.
Okay.
Me going and flying to another location and spending 3 to 4 days there to speak once or twice. And even if I landed a few clients, again, that's good. Like that would be a good activity, but it's not a 10X activity. Me going on a landscaper's podcast who has 100,000 followers of people that potentially might want to add lighting onto their business, to me, and again, I haven't done that yet, but like I don't have to leave my house. I can do it in 45 minutes sitting right here. Why would I not do that? It's such a better use of my time.
Yeah.
And I've had invites and opportunities. I'm like, oh, I don't have time. I'm out of town. Like, are you kidding me? Like, one day people will figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I have a coach though. I mean, like that's why we're in a mastermind. Like even if you are coaching people, if you're helping others, you're the savior for your people, your 20 plus people, you don't know everything. You're just, that one chapter ahead. You're just further along. You've just experienced all the crappy stuff and know what not to do. But you still need that. You need that help. You need that support group and stuff like that. So
it's so critical. Like when I joined my first coaching program was like 2016. I remember distinctly because I was living in Budapest and I was like, oh yeah, let me just start join this cleaning company coaching group. And I was super skeptical about anything coaching related. But when I joined, my business doubled. And, I don't think it was only because of the coach, but I think it has to do with I was in the right place. I decided I was betting in myself. I kind of changed my mentality around investing in me, investing in the business. So even like the mastermind we joined, Ryan, it's expensive, very expensive, right?
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I just joined for me was like, oh, I'm playing the big boys game now, right? Like it kind of changes your self-identity, whether you needed to spend a bunch of money to have that identity shift or not, who knows? But for me, that's what it did. So I think joining programs changed the game a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because sometimes it is something you learn from the group or the coach or whatever. But a lot of it is that identity shift is like you committing a specific amount of dollars and time to something where you're like, I got to be different. I got to think differently, act differently, do different than what I did in the past. And it's usually when you spend a shit ton of money, you're like, oh gosh, this is
I know. Yeah. It should make you feel uncomfortable. That's how like, yeah, okay, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's how I felt. That's the most I've ever spent, And
definitely.
Think about it. If it would have been like $300, we would have probably never showed up to anything.
No. It's so interesting how it's just psychology at work, right?
So the last question I've got for you as we wrap up, and I know you got another meeting after this. How are you so chill? Like, do you have a daily, a weekly? Like, what are you doing to stay in this Zen state or whatever you want to call it?
I'm glad you think I'm chill. That's cool.
Yeah, like you are. I'm just like, how? I don't know. You just don't have stress or you don't show it.
Yeah, maybe I don't show it. I'll be honest. Like sometimes I do get stress, especially if I'm getting frustrated with things I don't like doing. Like, sometimes with managing people, I'm like, dude, I handled that poorly. I should have done a lot better. Very stressful. Or if I'm playing,
why did I stab them with a pencil? I mean,
yeah, shouldn't have done that. Second time doing it, not good. Or honestly, I get most stressed if I'm playing the comparison game. Right, then I'm like, shit, I just should be doing better. So it's more like beating myself up. But besides that, I'll be honest, like I don't know. Like, I'll talk about it out loud because I've actually never thought about this, Ryan. Thanks for the question. But if I look at my schedule, maybe I get stressed because I have too many meetings. But most of the stuff is like there's nothing like super critical. Nothing's like urgent and on fire. And like if I don't do it, my whole world's gonna burn. Like if you look at most things we do, nothing is that critical. Whether I get it done today or in 2 days from now, it's not going to change anything. So there's some things which do stress me out a lot, especially, minor things happen here and like certain things happen here and there, but it's on like maybe monthly or quarterly basis. It's not really a weekly basis. And I don't think I'm doing anything unique, Ryan. I just kind of look at my schedule. I'm like, well, if I don't get it done now, I'll just get it done next week. And that's probably not the best way of doing it. But for me, it's like, I think it has to be urgent. It kind of goes back to the ethos of business of like, this business is support my lifestyle. I'm still internally motivated. So I'm actually going to get this stuff done because I want to. But if I happen to have to push it tomorrow, there's no freaking way I'm going to pull all nighter to get this done. There's no way. And right, I remember I think it was at our event, one person was saying like, oh, I probably need to pull all nighter just to get this presentation done. And in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, there's this zero chance I would do that. Like, I'd rather just, and again, like I'm saying, like, I don't know if this mindset's the best way of doing it because I'm probably not pushing the envelope as far as I could, but it might just be my refusal to do things which I think are highly stressful. It's just an adverse reaction to that, which caused me not to even put them on my plate in the first place.
Honestly, that's a great answer. Is like, it kind of brings us back to the very beginning because we were talking about constraints, and it's like you just don't allow yourself to do why would you stay up all night to do something? Just do it the next day or the day after, which is crazy because if you think about what the world teaches is like hustle, grind, like sacrifice, do what others aren't willing to do, and it's like, yeah, but why? And if your why is because you want to support your lifestyle, then you wouldn't do that. Like you can't do that. You're in another country. You can't interview that person there locally. Somebody else has to. Like, I just love it, man. I think it really comes down to you put the constraints in. You've told yourself you're not going to do stressful activities, and there's a lot of gold that you shared today. I appreciate you being vulnerable with us.
Thanks, man. No, I appreciate it. I think it's a great question. So it also made me think a little bit more about how I'm operating. So it's like a therapy session, Ryan. Thank you.
That's good. Well, like when people ask me like, well, how do you do this? I'm like, I don't know. Like I should have well, here's my 4-step framework. Like, I feel like that's some of your stuff is you're like, I don't know. I just do it. But as we talk through it, it's like, you do have like steps and things that you do that put you in this Zen state. So I hope people are taking notes.
Yeah. It's a fun episode, man.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again. I really appreciate you doing this. It's a Lighting for Profits podcast. So I don't know how excited you were to come on and talk about MaidThis, but I truly believe that you helped a lot of people today. You helped me. And as a selfish person, it felt good. So thank you, Neel.
There we go. I appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. Have an awesome week. Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week. Don't forget, take notes. Keep moving forward, but not too fast. Don't stay up all night working on those presentations.